Hey, I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is the Founded in FoCo podcast. Every episode, we get a chance to talk to somebody who is doing innovative, creative, leadership-type work in our community. And I am so happy today that we have Kris with us today to talk about burnout and how do we build capacity. Kris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am the whole being coach because I believe that we are more than just numbers. Such a pleasure to be here and to be on the podcast and to be talking with you, Nick.
I've always enjoyed our conversations,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to sharing some of your brilliance with the rest of the world. And Founded in FoCo, as you know, is coming up here pretty soon, and you're one of our speakers. Tell us about what you have planned.
Just to rewind back to last year when I really was just getting started with my business and learning and adapting, and to be here now is really amazing. And, that's one of the things that I do talk about in my work is rewinding and making sure that you give yourself flowers for how far you've come. But this year, I'll be talking about reclaiming your capacity, right? We all have capacity, and a lot of us maybe don't have so much capacity, right? And what I'm posing to folks is that capacity is something that can be managed. Your energy is something that can be managed. And that's really the way to prevent burnout.
So it's partly capacity. Is saying no some of that, or like what is the process?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I call it the B word because lots of folks don't want to see that coming, but boundaries are, it's the core of my work. But when we think about boundaries, I'll just dig in there a little bit. A lot of times it's thinking about, well, I don't want that person to do that. No, it's internal first always, right? It's what you will say yes and what you will say no to, right? And it is also about saying no more often than you probably do at the moment. Yeah.
When you are, I assume that you work with clients, and how often does this come up? Is there a certain type of entrepreneur, or is it nonprofit directors that are saying no,
Yeah.
less frequently? What is the type of person that says to yes to just too many things?
Yeah, it's everybody. I don't think that they're, I call it leaky boundaries, right? I call you're leaking your boundaries, right? Your capacity is slowly seeping out at these places that maybe you are aware, maybe you're not aware, maybe you don't know how to change those rhythms that you've been in where you just say yes as your default, right? So really that's everybody. But it really, in my work, it's from leaders, it's, folks who are on councils who are doing, really important care type of work, to, not regular, but, folks who are just professionals, and they're like, well, I don't know why this person, that person, why I don't have any time. Well, it's because of how you've taught folks to treat you. And then where I come in and where I can help is teaching yourself how to treat yourself differently. Therefore, others will treat you differently and treat your capacity differently because you have these boundaries in place and they're very clear.
Yeah. It reminds me of that idea that the systems that built the current world are not going to get us to the world that works in the future. And having that maybe career trajectory, you had called it rhythms, of saying yes to opportunities, saying yes to new things, and, expanding your role, expanding your possibilities for so long got you to the leadership role. But now that you're there, it's hard to keep them if you don't have those boundaries in place, like you said.
For sure. And we're talking about self-leadership here, right? First and foremost. And that's for everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a leader of an actual team, we're talking about self-leadership. And, especially if you're leading a team, you're only showing your team by how you are moving. And so if you're moving in a way in which your boundaries are leaky, or like you're not managing your capacity as well as maybe you could, that also means that your team is probably doing the same. And everybody wants more capacity, but also as a leader, you don't want to be losing money. And if folks are leaking their capacity, leaking their boundaries everywhere, you're probably losing some money.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
looks like hard to maintain systems, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, when you talk, essentially, my work is based in teaching folks an internal system first, right? And so the framework that I came up with starts at awareness, goes through resetting. Then we talk about boundaries so that you're protecting what you've already reset, right? And what you're aware of where your energy and capacity is going. And then to rhythms, right? What systems work for you? Because what systems work for you may not work for this person or that team member or that entrepreneur or that solopreneur. It can be, it can be designed for you is what I'm proposing to folks, is the perspective that I'm proposing to folks, especially considering what you just named, where society maybe has not told us or treated work sustainably in that way where, hey, it's got to be this way and you need to fit in that box. And maybe you have a manager who's micromanaging you and not allowing for you to do something that really will bring you more flow and also more productivity and rest.
When it comes to nonprofit leaders, those are folks that tend to have a lot of different hats. How's the right way or a good way to set boundaries across all of those different hats that they might be wearing?
For sure. Well, my work is in building more capacity for you because I believe that everybody knows where they should prioritize themselves. Like that's within each person. So I'm helping them, these nonprofit leaders per se, really be able to prioritize their time appropriately. But first, you have to have some space to be able to see that, to have that clarity. Right. So I believe that they know best. But realistically, what we're talking about is just making sure that they're caring for themselves just as much as they're caring for everybody else. Because when you're talking about the nonprofit world, there's so much of themselves in the work, right? They're such caring people, but that caring can also have a particular drain on your capacity and on your energy, your emotional bandwidth, right? And so if you're not caring for yourself in a way that allows for your work to be sustainable, that's when we start to see burnout becoming more and more of a cycle that happens more and more and more often in your life, but also requires more rest, right? Because the depletion is at such a level. The more that it happens, the more that okay, great, I've got all this energy and now I really don't. We want to take that wavelength from like really high highs to really low lows to where we're somewhere here, right? Burnout prevention is not about we can't have any stress in our lives to the stress is just not prolonged. It's not consistent, right? We're not leading most of our lives, work and personal lives, in a state of urgency all the time. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for myself, which is part of my work, right? My work is in, me offering the data from how I'm moving through my entrepreneurship and my work and personal life so that hopefully others can learn from it as well.
Tell me a little bit about that, Kris. How did you get into the burnout coach prevention space?
Well, it's so funny. I was speaking with somebody and I told them, I'm a burnout prevention and capacity coach. And they mentioned, oh, well, I feel like anybody who's in the burnout space has a burnout story themselves. Yes, I do. Most people do. Right. And I just got to a point where there's got to be a different way. There's just got to be a different way of working that that is maybe not aligned to how society has taught us that work needs to be. And so I built that for myself out of a necessity of me wanting to do work differently for myself, what I'm calling aligned and ambitious, right? Because I believe that it can be both. We can be ambitious. I'm not losing any of my productivity by slowing down, by being more mindful about what my body is asking for and about being more intentional with my rest. And so coming from a tech background, I was like, this is the last time where I'm going to experience burnout like this. And I hope that it is.
That metaphor, and it comes up a lot of put your own air mask on first before you put on anybody else's, presumes that you are on a plane that is experiencing disaster.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've always had that like, well, wait, why are we operating as if we're on a plane that's about to crash
Yeah.
every single time?
Yeah.
We shouldn't be doing that. And then the care space, I think, is really important, that especially in mutual aid, the idea of I don't have to solve the program or problem cohesively. I don't have to resolve world hunger in order to donate to the food bank. And I don't have to donate every single day in order to make a valuable contribution to the community.
Yeah. I think where we get hung up, those of us within the care industries or the wellness industries, um, is are we doing enough? And I had a wonderful conversation with another coach, and you being you is enough. Just there, that's enough of the work. in this world. And so if you're focused on bringing the best you to the forefront of every interaction that you're having, whether that's with work or in the grocery store or walking, right? Then we are doing the work that we're meant to be doing in this world and caring for oneself, putting that mask on. Life is chaotic. Life, I mean, one could say life is, an ever changing disaster. So why wouldn't we put the mask on ourselves first before we put it on somebody else? And especially when you're in the mutual aid world, there's so much that is being asked of a person that realistically we got to be doing this work. We have to be looking after ourselves much more intentionally so that we can continue pouring into others the way that we want to, right? Because all of us really want to be doing this work, right? We really do, but it has to be sustainable.
100%.
Yeah.
Eh, how do you identify, I mean, it's probably pretty easy because their hair's on fire, but how do you identify somebody who is in that mode of burnout? They have no capacity, they have very little self-care going on. What does that look like, and what is the process for not only self-identification, because I imagine that a fair number of people reach out to you in advance, but what does it look like when somebody has been referred to you, for instance?
Yeah, it's so funny. I'd like to come back to the self identification. That's actually a little tougher than you would think. Folks don't actually know that they're burnt out. I had a great conversation with someone once at a networking event, and she was saying how she left this job, and it was 2 years later she was at the gym listening to a podcast, and she didn't know what the podcast was about, but they were talking about burnout. And she's like, wait a minute, I identify with that. What's going on? Mind you, this is 2 years after she left that job. And she was like, oh, I'm burnt out. So it actually is a bit more challenging. I think it's less and less now, but it is a bit challenging for folks who have been in that burnout cycle for so long to identify themselves as actually being burnt out. Realistically, people come to me when they know that they want something different, when they know that they want to do work differently. And what I offer is a different perspective, a different way of doing that work. Um, and so folks will come, this could be anything like I'm snapping all the time. Like I just don't have any time to do anything, to get this work done, to do all the things in life, and I'm not resting. And that really is the crux of the issue, because somewhere we've been told that rest will slow us down so much so that we can't get the things done that we want to get done. When in fact, it's actually the opposite. Rest brings you more productivity. If we think about, I like to bring analogies of sports into it, right? One, these professional athletes, they are professional at what they do and using their bodies, but they are also very much professional at resting. And so when you think about a professional athlete being in the flow, for instance, maybe Steph Curry shooting lights out three after three after three, that's because he rested. That's because he put his body, his mind in a place to be able to tap into that flow, and his productivity skyrocketed. So it can be both. And I'm living it right now. And there are many other folks who are as well.
It strikes me that there is a late stage capitalism argument to be had here, which is Steph Curry is well compensated to the degree that even his rest is compensated. And so I am curious. This seems like something that maybe a freelancer or small business owner or solopreneur could build into their rate structure. For instance, that we bill at X, and I also don't work every Monday and Friday, right? That seems to be how you would do that. But for folks who are in it with a 9 to 5 or working for a larger nonprofit or other things like that, how can you build in those systems of rest and recovery in a way that is not diminishing of your income or other things like that? It might be reliant on you showing up, you doing the work, you being present and engaged, and being able to sync the three.
Absolutely. Well, and then that's such a beautiful question. Again, back to the rhythms. It comes back to finding what works for you, but there are a couple things there. Um, First thing is that we can take 5 minutes. Anybody can take 5 minutes to reset your mind, right? Cognitively, if there's so much load on your mind, you're not actually getting out as much quality as you're wanting to. So anybody can take 5 minutes to go step outside, feel the cold air, feel the warm air on, on your face, get some sunlight and recover in that way, right? Restore in that way. But in 95, what that looked like for me, a personal rhythm that I really enjoyed was Wednesdays were my day to pour back into me, even professionally, right? So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I had calls. Wednesday, I had coaching, right? Wednesday was my day to make sure that I had all of my admin work. Wednesday was my no call day. And so figuring out small things like that can really help. I remember hearing a story one time about a coder who was working with a coach, and he wanted to figure out in 8 hours what his ultimate rhythm cycle was of work on and work off. He did many trials, and this is what I would also suggest is explore what your rhythms are, but he did 45 minutes on and 15 minutes of a break. And usually that 15 minutes looked like some sort of movement for the body so that you can ground back into the body, your mind can have a rest, and then it would be 45 minutes back to coding. And that's what he did for 8 hours. And that he figured out gave him the most amount of code for his 8 hours. So there are many different ways to be able to move within your work rhythms to help, but also resetting just looks like 5 minutes here. Maybe it looks like giving yourself permission to actually take that lunch break, right? Because, if you're in that 9 to 5 and everything is just urgent, you know, folks are like, well, I don't have time for a lunch break. It's being intentional with your breaks, really.
What is something that someone could do today? What's something that's actionable for them in order to try those experiments for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. If someone to maybe help identify if you're burnt out, how do you feel after you sleep for the day? But also it might be helpful for you to journal all of your activities during the day, all the things that you did, and whether or not rest was included in that, right? Identifying how you feel after your workday and if you have any space at all to do anything or after the weekend, right? We talk about the Sunday scaries, right? Where it's like, oh man, I really don't want to go back to work. I just posted yesterday on LinkedIn, like, it's Tuesday. Are you ready for the weekend already? It's possible that there's not been enough recovery within your system. I always will firstly go to breath. Your breath is always that's something that anybody can take away, and it is so wonderful to bring somatically back into the body and out of the mind. Just focusing on your breath. One that I really love doing is box breathing. Go on YouTube, find a box breathing video that you can follow and do that. That's something that anybody can take away right now.
So, Kris, tell me about your journey a little bit from you've been attendee at Founded in FoCo, and now you're a speaker at Founded in FoCo.
It's so wild to rewind a whole year and to think about where I was, when I went to Founded in FoCo last year. And it was very fortuitous because I realized I had just started my business in December, was getting into it, and I realized I was like, something's missing. I need networking. And so I went to an event in Loveland, and then folks were like, hey, have you heard about Founded in FoCo? And I was like, no. And then I got on, it was going to be in 2 weeks. So like, that's how fortuitous it was that I had started networking. And just from that event, what has come about to me now this year, being a speaker and facilitating, and to look back at what came out of last year, I met up with an accountability group that was born out of us all meeting at Founded in FoCo. And so we met up this morning, and to be like, can you believe that it's been a year, that we've all known each other a year, that we fostered these connections there. And realistically, it's been so that conference, your conference, Founded in FoCo, has so many threads that are still moving through and still growing in my business and in other people's businesses. I've got like I said, this accountability group. I have my own co-working group where a lot of us, either we met at Founded in FoCo or we were connected by folks that we met at Founded in FoCo. It's just a really beautiful environment to grow as a human, but also grow as a business, to feel like you're not alone. There are these other people, you get to connect, you get to learn about other people. you get to build partnerships, and there are partnerships that are growing for me and for other people through this. And it's just such a wonderful, I'm really grateful that I live in Fort Collins, but that I have access to such a beautiful opportunity to connect with other business owners, to learn more about business, to learn more about myself, but also now to pass out wisdom that I have learned.
Well, that's the trajectory that we always hope for, which is
Yeah.
you come, you join in, you see that the networking and all the rest of the sessions are exactly what you hope for. You're successful in growing your business, and then you share what you know. Thank you for being our success story.
Yeah, for sure. I
one
mean,
one of
like
many,
I
I hope.
yeah,
So
for me, even when I went to Founded in FoCo last year, I was a wellness coach. And from the feedback that I got from different people, it was very apparent that I had to pivot. And as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you're going to have to pivot. But that was the very first really light bulb moment of there's some pivoting that's necessary here. Your message isn't very clear here. And in business, you need your message to be very clear. And I'm probably still working on that a little bit, but Founded in FoCo was just this really pivotal moment of learning about where I wanted to go, but where I needed to go as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the idea of co-working spaces and accountability groups, and specifically, Cohere is our partner this year for providing accountability groups after Founded in FoCo. So it's going to be an opportunity for everybody to come together and learn from each other and have those moments of cadence after you learn all these amazing things, and then what? And so I love the idea that you had done that work even before we had put those structures into place, but now we've got an official place and partner through Cohere, and those accountability groups and accountability buddies can be made manifest. So
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and I'm a member of Cohere myself, and lately, especially within the past few months, especially having a co-working group and how important body doubling is for me as a neurodivergent person, it made so much sense for me to become a member of Cohere and to be part of such a beautiful group and a beautiful establishment in the community.
so as we talk about your session at Founded in FoCo, what is the thing that folks will walk out of the room with?
Yeah, you'll walk out with a framework to start building an internal system to have your work be sustainable, really, right? Something practical, something grounded in this is how I'm aware that maybe I'm a little dysregulated, because something we didn't mention is that the nervous system is at the core of what we're talking about. And what we're wanting to find is more relief for your nervous system, so that way you have more clarity, you have more sustainability, you have more cognitive abilities, right? You have better decision making, which we all need. And also, you're probably you're in a better place to interact with your family, interact with loved ones, all of those things. So what they'll leave with is a framework that they can use as soon as they walk out of the door of a, am I feeling dysregulated? How burnt out am I feeling? I need to reset, right? What are some boundaries? They'll leave with boundary scripts of like, in this situation, this might help or that might help. And what I'm hoping, the last part of it, is permission for them to build a system and build a rhythm that really works for them.
It seems to me like this is in boundary setting in particular, is a muscle that has to be developed in that same way. Are there exercises? Do you have to find opportunities, present yourself with an opportunity, and then say no to it? Like what? How can you tee yourself up for that to start building these muscles on a regular basis?
Yeah. It's such a good point, and it is such a muscle that we've got to flex. And a lot of us were, I'll speak from myself, learned how to be a people pleaser. And what I post to folks is, who are you being kind to? Are you being kind? That can sometimes just be enough of an awareness of like, who are you being kind to first? And so the awareness in that. But I like to give people the example of a boundary, setting an internal boundary first. For me, I don't ingest anything until I've had water. That's a boundary for me, right? And so we don't necessarily think about boundaries in that way, but how it can be is like I'm committing to having water be the first thing that's in my body first. So it's about the commitments, right? It's about the commitments to yourself, and that's really the way to move through it. So it is a muscle, but there's really not one size fits all. It's about where are you willing to allow your energy to go or not.
Yeah, I like that. Low pressure commitments to yourself.
For sure.
Well, Kris, where can we find out more about you and your business?
Yeah. So you can find out more about me and my business at thewholebeingcoach.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Kris Monkou, Monkou. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or you'd like to spend more time with me.
And of course, founded in FoCo,
Yeah,
March
I found
10th
it in
through 12th.
FoCo. I'll be at Made in Loveland. I also, if you're in Fort Collins, I have a series that's going on at the Visit Fort Collins Center in March and in May. And so, yeah, and around town, hopefully you see my smiling face as well.
It's a rare opportunity to avail yourself of a burnout coach.
Y-
Uh,
Yeah,
there, there aren't many of you out there, and
yeah.
it's a really cool thing. So, Kris, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Any last thoughts that you want to leave someone with?
um just to take care of yourself, and that we can be aligned and ambitious. We can focus on our wellness and our productivity without either having a decline.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, for more with entrepreneurs just like Kris, come join us at Founded in FoCo and get some advice that helps your business out. I cannot wait to see you there. It's going to be such a great time. And we hope to see yours and Kris's smiling face at Founded in FoCo March 10th through 12th. Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is a Founded in FoCo podcast. For more great interviews like this one, join us at foundedinfoco.com.